This segment is brought to you in part by the Canadian Historical Arms Society, owners of the Genesee Range, the premier recreational sport and training facility in Western Canada. See us online at historical-arms.com.
The Quiet Professional, a podcast about law enforcement, security, justice, and politics. We are digging deeper on the issues and going where the information takes us with access to experts and authorities. Welcome to The Quiet Professional. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Quiet Professional. Today we are talking about the world of snipers, training, and some mental and physical management, and much more. For that, I have my co-host returning, John Simpson. He's back on the mic. So welcome to you, John.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And we got a returning guest. I don't think we could get anybody better when we're talking sniping. We have Derrick Bartlett returning to the program. He is a 28-year law enforcement veteran, 20 years in special operations, and he is the founder and director of Snipercraft Incorporated and the president of the American Sniper Association. So welcome back, Derrick.
Thanks for having me back.
You know what? John suggested we get you back in around this time frame, and I think it'll be good because you just ran through SniperWeek. So we want to kind of start there and get some updates and see how that went for you. And if there was anybody maybe notable from out of country or anywhere within.
Well, things went really well. The attendance was good. All the speakers at the presentations during the conference were outstanding. We had 5 actual incident debriefs, which are always the most well-received portion of the conference portion. Guys detailing some really interesting and off-the-wall types of shooting incidents. In fact, one of the debriefs we had was detailing our very first documented police sniper shooting utilizing a thermal scope.
Oh, wow.
So that was a bit monumental. And fortunately for him, in his presentation, he pointed out that agencies shouldn't be rushing out and buying thermal scopes and putting them on their snipers to utilize, because unless you are going to invest in a really high-end scope that has a high level of resolution to it, you still can't do facial target identification based off of signature. And his situation was one in which his target was isolated in a field by himself. He was the only person there, and he raised a gun at the negotiator, which the sniper could clearly see in his heat signature. But barring those special circumstances to completely isolate his target in space, he wouldn't have been confident to take that shot based on just using his thermal scope. And his thermal scope wasn't even a department-issued thermal scope. It was one that he personally owned.
Really?
But like I said, that was the highlight of the presentations. And then the competition portion went really well. The weather cooperated. We got through 2 days of range time, and not a half hour after we finished everything and closed up, it poured. So we didn't get a single drop of rain on us, which is always a plus. But the team that won this year was a first-time team from Columbia, Missouri. It's an agency that we've had dealings with in the past as far as training goes, but these 2 snipers, this was their first time attending, and they did really well. One of the things that comes out in the competition is doing one thing well, it doesn't help you win it. Being able to do a lot of things well consistently over the 2 days is what pushed you to the front. And they had a very consistent 2-day performance where they were just there in the top 5 over and over and over again. And they hung on to win by 16 points.
Wow. Did you ever find out from them what training they were doing before, or what program they were a part of?
Well, like I said, we've done classes where in the past around the country where we've had people from Columbia, Missouri as students. We've had a couple of their guys come to a sniper instructor class years ago. So I'm assuming that the program that they had, their agency had been exposed to, they're incorporating the things that they learned from us then, because it showed up that these guys were prepared. Nothing flustered them. They handled all the adversity, and they did really well over the 2 days.
Oh, very good. Actually, I want to go back to this, talking about this thermal scope. Well, I've never heard of it happening in Canada. So I would say, I'm not sure if it's ever been up here. I don't know if we even utilize that technology yet. But Yeah, is that something that even at it's Sniper Week or anywhere else that you do training on?
No, it's new tech. Well, I won't say it's new technology. Hunters have been using thermal scopes forever and ever, but the limitation that we've always addressed in our training is the resolution of most thermal scopes isn't good enough to do positive facial identifications based on a heat signature. The military has scopes that are of that grade and quality, but they're still really, really expensive. So few law enforcement agencies are going to be willing to invest $8,000 or $10,000 in such a specialized piece of equipment for snipers. So you don't see a lot of application for it other than locating subjects, doing man hunts, searching for people in the woods, that type of issue. But weapons-mounted thermal scopes is really rare in our community still.
So this isn't something that people are even going to be picking up right away anyways, at least just due to cost.
If they want to do it right, the cost is going to be a limiting factor. If they want to do it poorly, they're going to rush out and buy whatever thermal scope they can get their hands on that fits into their budget. They're going to mount it on their rifles. And they're going to find out that you can't shoot heat blobs. You have to have something more identifiable that we can articulate later as that this is how I identified my target as the target. So
yeah. Did you have anybody from outside the country this go around?
This year we didn't have any. Well, no, we didn't have any teams from outside this year. That's a unique one. We usually have a team or two from Canada. We usually have several teams come in from South America, and in the past we've had European teams come in. But this year we didn't have any from outside the country.
One of the things that you wanted to talk about, John, and this comes with Sniper Week, was now it's a national network kind of connected to this. Do you want to talk a bit about this?
Yeah. So, first of all, how many? So at this point, because we mark anniversaries with Sniper Weeks, it's like just for the audience, how many years has Snipercraft been in operation?
We were formally incorporated in September of 1992.
Yep. So a lot of water, a lot of Sniper Weeks in the can. And so basically it's like Snipercraft was originally, your operation out of Florida. Could you tell us what the Snipercraft network has evolved into?
Well, Snipercraft started off as an idea to be able to host a sniper tournament in Florida. As I tell the story, when we approached the agency I worked for, Fort Lauderdale, with the idea, they said they didn't want the liability attached to it, so we had to do it as a separate entity. So we formed Snipercraft for that end. And shortly after doing a couple of the initial competitions, they grew into a competition and a conference. And then we started getting requests to do schools. So we put together sniper schools that have evolved from the very first one we did in 1995 to where we stand today. As the years went on, there was so much demand for us to do sniper schools that exceeded my ability to answer every request. I started getting guys who had been part of the Snipercraft family for years and years step forward and say they wanted to take on the load. So we formed about 4 years ago what we refer to as our legacy programs. And we now have Snipercraft, I'll use the term affiliates, they're not really affiliates as such, but we have Snipercraft affiliates in the Northwest, is Snipercraft Northwest. We have one in the New England area, it's Snipercraft New England, or Northeast, and Snipercraft Mid-Atlantic. So we're extending our reach and hoping to keep the momentum going, because at some point in time, I have to submit to the idea that I am human and I have human limitations. And at some point in time, I need to cut back. So these guys are taking up the mantle, and hopefully they will continue the process long after I've stepped back to the sidelines to watch them work.
Yeah. Well, and do you guys have any plans going international, or is that still, you're still looking at expanding just in the U.S.?
Right now, expanding in the U.S. is monumental task enough. I would love to see our message carried internationally, but it would have to be the right set of circumstances with the right set of people who want to take it on. It's not just something anyone can do. It's not something that anyone wants to do. The guys who are running the Snipercraft affiliates all came to me saying they want to do this. And that's an important qualifier. I'm not actively recruiting somebody to be a Snipercraft instructor. This is something that someone really needs to want to do and do it for the right reasons. And the 4 guys or 5 guys who are doing it currently for me, they have the right reasons.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. And when you had the week going on, anything you seen outside of the thermal, we talked about that, but anything you saw going on that were good or bad habits, things people have been picking up since the last time we had you on the show?
Well, we're seeing more and more tripod use in the field. That's based on our findings in the database we keep. So we incorporate more and more shooting stages that have tripods incorporated in them. So we're seeing guys show up with tripods of varying quality. I'll say it that way diplomatically. And they're using techniques that, unfortunately, some of them have been taught the right way to do tripod shooting as it would apply to a tactical shooter. But unfortunately, some of the guys who are learning their tripod shooting are learning it from the internet. And they're employing things that look cool in a YouTube video, but they aren't practical for a sniper in a long-term deployment where he's standing in an apartment for 6 hours with his tripod. So we saw a lot of shaky performance off the tripod stages because of that. We also are seeing more and more younger snipers doing things like the improper grip on their rifles. Again, it's a carryover from what they see on the internet. They see the YouTube and the PRS shooters doing the grip where the thumb is on the index finger side of the stock. And we rail against this because when you're shooting at a stationary target that's staked in the ground and fully cooperating with your efforts to put a bullet hole in it, that type of grip is okay because basically you're trying to sneak up on the rifle and not disturb your sight picture as you're pressing the trigger. But with a police sniper in a real world operation, your target is completely uncooperative. He is constantly mobile, where there's minute movements of just bobbing his head back and forth or walking back and forth or sprinting. And in order for a sniper to be able to accurately and precisely track that type of target, he needs to have full control of his rifle all the time. And you can't maintain that level of precision in tracking an individual without a firm grip on the stock. And a firm handshake grip has been a basic fundamental rifle shooting for as long as rifles have existed. So why suddenly this change to, well, let's not touch the rifle because we want to influence it by gripping it? That's just nonsense. It makes me crazy every time I see it.
Well, and John, you brought that up a few times, talking about the cooperative versus uncooperative subject and the fundamentals of shooting.
Because it's like people ignore, a lot of trainers ignore the what I've identified as the characteristics of a sniper target, and basically that's been incorporated into the Snipercraft curriculum. But so at this point, one thing I wanted to ask you, both as wearing your Snipercraft hat and your ASA hat, is and you and I have talked about this before. What are you seeing as the impact of a bunch of military snipers that served in Afghanistan or Iraq, got out and then hung out their shingle as a police sniper, and they're taking in a lot of students and agencies that don't really know any better?
Well, I know I'm going to get grief for this answer because I always do.
This is a good place to do that.
Yeah. This is a safe space.
We have always had the philosophy that you can't teach police snipers how to do a job that you've never done. And for military guys getting out and hanging their shingles, or the competitive shooters getting out and wanting to open up their schools and their trainings to police snipers, fine. There are things that you can teach that are universal to the three different disciplines. Marksmanship is marksmanship, but how it's applied in those different environments is different enough to matter. The tactics, the techniques, the equipment is different enough ways that a person who has never done police sniping can't teach police sniping. And I have difficulty with all the military guys who are jumping out and thinking just because they've shot bad guys at 800 yards routinely in the desert, that translates to making you a better police sniper. It doesn't. It doesn't mean you're better or worse than police snipers. It just means you're different. And that's important for everybody to understand. The training that police snipers need to get is training that's going to make them better police snipers. Not just better shooters, but better police snipers.
Essentially, what you're saying is like it comes down to the environment that they're operating in. This is kind of something I wanted to explore a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, police snipers work in a world that sometimes it's urban, sometimes it's rural, sometimes it's suburban. But the distances that police snipers are going to be working in is always going to be relatively short distances. You're always going to be dealing with people who are American citizens. You're not shooting enemy combatants on a battlefield someplace. And because you're dealing with American citizens, there are certain laws and statutes and constitutional issues that have to go into how you apply, especially deadly force against those individuals. Being able to clearly identify targets and shoot them with legal justification to have done so is important. And just teaching tactics that if you see a blob on the battlefield 800 yards away and he's not supposed to be there, put a bullet in him, that philosophy and that approach can't be peeking into police sniper training. A couple of years ago.
Yeah. So like Derrick was talking about, it all depends on who's driving the train, the sniper or the target. The way I look at it is when a military sniper is shooting somebody at 600 yards, basically their use of force policy is, oh look, there's a guy wearing the wrong uniform. He's the one with the map. So I'm going to shoot him when the opportunity arises. And you're like, oh, hold on, the wind shifted and all this stuff. And okay, yeah, now I finally got him. But the thing is, for a police sniper, one thing that Snipercraft teaches is that just because you give a cop a scoped rifle doesn't mean he's not a cop anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, it's like that person that you're going to shoot, he actually has to be doing something to justify you shooting him. And so there's that brief moment in time where, guy walking around his front yard having a bad day with a gun at his side. And it's like, okay, hey, let's try and talk this guy down. And then the instant that he raises his gun to point it at the hostage negotiator, that isn't the time to like, okay, now I'm gonna get into my breathing cycle and, try to take a shot in between heartbeats and everything like that. So that is, in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why police sniper engagements are at such a relatively short range.
Well, and just think of how dynamic it is. And like you're saying, Derrick, there too, the situation can kind of change. And somebody could have a gun 1 second and then they drop it the next, or they raise it, or just circumstances seem to dictate the use of force level that we're going to apply. I mean, I know up here in Canada, I've had situations where I've pointed my gun at somebody because they were a lethal threat and they're within 15, 20 feet of me, but then they decide to drop it. And it's like, well, I mean, you're a hair away from pulling a trigger or not pulling a trigger, or switching to a whole different tool to apprehend them or arrest them. So I just think for snipers, you're kind of like you're saying, it's still citizens. You have your use of force, your policies, your procedures, all that to follow, the statutes, the law. I mean, there's a lot going on. And I don't know personally if that is for the same for Army or anybody in the military that is in a sniper program. Maybe, John, you can kind of speak to that. Like if there's that level of detail going into it, or it's like, hey, if this person walks out here, you're cleared to shoot them. If it's that simple,
It's about because it depends on the conflict and the rules of engagement. So
yeah,
in the military, you can run into some pretty stupid rules of engagement where you see bad guys carrying AKs, and then they actually have to shoot them. They have to touch them off before you can shoot those guys.
Okay.
And then there's other ones where, you know, you see a squad of guys wearing the wrong uniform 700 yards away, and it's like, hey, by all means, target the guy with the binoculars. So it all depends.
Law enforcement, the standard never changes. That person has to be committing a felony to a level that you can use deadly force to effect a seizure or arrest.
Yeah.
Just because he's standing on his front of the gun doesn't mean you can automatically shoot him. Just because he's yelling threats out the window doesn't mean you can automatically shoot him. There has to be furtherance in his actions to justify now he's committing a forcible felony of some sort. Now he presents an imminent or immediate threat to law enforcement or to civilians or hostages. So there's a completely different level of commitment that a police sniper has to make in his decision making before he can press a trigger, and not just shoot at anything that's downrange from him.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good explanation, especially for people who might not be in law enforcement at all, to kind of get an idea of how it works. One of the things I was going to ask you too, Derrick, was do you watch movies and get kind of annoyed by some of the stuff you see in there? Like there's all these reviews online. I always wonder, you must watch some things and go like, what the hell? Like who's teaching this person, whether it's the actor or whatever the situation is, or can you not watch movies now and you're like, get too angry at them?
I still watch them from time to time, but yes, I get thoroughly annoyed with the way snipers are portrayed in almost every television show and every movie. But I look at it through two lenses. One, they don't know any better. And two, I don't want the general public to know any better. Continue to show snipers doing stupid things, stupid ways. Fine. Have that image of the way you think snipers operate. So they're hanging over the ledge on the highest part of a house, or they're sticking their muzzle out the window to address somebody. They're there with their caps behind, turned around backwards, waiting for somebody in the command post to say, go ahead, fire the shot. That type of nonsense is portrayed in movies all the time. It doesn't really happen. Part of me says, let the public continue to believe that. Let them not see snipers building hide locations that are completely undetectable from the outside. Let them not know that snipers are constantly visually invading into this crisis situation because they have the optics to look through the guy's window and see him while he's talking to his hostages and portray that or relay that information to the command post in real time. And he's completely unaware that this is happening to him, but he is always exposed to the potential of a sniper putting a bullet between his eyes. Let them not know that that's the way snipers are really operating behind the veil.
Well, when we talk about the training, I know up here that it's not like for our police service, the Edmonton Police, we don't have a sniper program in the sense like we don't train them. It's not our people train them. Like they go and take a course with some other people. Is it the same in the US? Like do bigger agencies have their own programs, or can they send them to Snipercraft and you get them up to a certain standard? Well, how does it kind of work for qualifying people?
Some agencies run their own in-house training for their sniper programs. A lot of the bigger agencies will do that. But most agencies around the country don't have the instructors, they don't have the mechanism, they don't have the time. So they'll send them to outside companies to train their snipers. And that's where we generate most of our clientele from. So, example, we're doing a class next week in Janesville, Wisconsin. We go to Janesville, Wisconsin twice a year religiously to do basic sniper classes up there. And we'll have 18, 20 students, and they'll be from 8, 10, 12 different agencies from all around the Midwest coming to us for training.
Wow.
And that's the way most places do. Someone will host a centralized training, and then agencies from around their area will come to that place to get a week's worth or 2 weeks, whatever the school is offering for sniper training.
The other thing too is like within the US, there's a lot of law enforcement agencies. I want to say, if I remember correctly, because I've said it on here before, but it's like something like 18,000 different agencies down there. And up in Canada, we have about 180. And I'm just thinking, like, when they cross over, if you go into like different jurisdictions, and you have a sniper from one, but maybe they're operating in another one, especially with the differences in the level of training, or maybe they went to different organizations to get their qualifications. Do you know how they kind of cross over and can operate in different areas? Does it even work like that?
It does work like that in certain places. You'll have multi-jurisdictional teams where, and because they don't have enough personnel to mount a team themselves, multiple cities and in some cases multiple counties that get together to put together 20 or 30 guys for a SWAT team. And in those instances, what we hope happens, and we always promote this in our supervisor classes, is that you have a mutual aid policy, MOU, or whatever you want to call it. But this policy applies to all the members of this team. Everybody understands the rules of engagement. Everybody's getting the same level of training. All the participating agencies have to have the same level of commitment to the team as a whole, as a separate entity. That's the perfect way. A lot of agencies, they don't do it that way. They're part of a mutual team, but they'll say, well, our guys have too many other responsibilities, so they can't go to training twice a month. We'll send them for a couple hours, and then they got to go back to their jobs. And with those type of applications, you end up with the uneven performance, the uneven knowledge. And those are the doorways to disaster, because you end up with snipers out there, and entry guys as well, but you end up with snipers out there that don't know how to do sniping.
Yeah.
They just know how to shoot a gun.
Yeah. So one thing I would ask you to expand on is, because what you bring up is there isn't a generally recognized national standard for for basic and advanced levels of police sniping. And I know that you've run into cases where you'll be teaching an advanced course, and some guys that attended they took their basic sniper training at the closed cover before striking school, and they show up, and when they basically have absolutely no idea what you're talking about at the basic level.
And unfortunately, that happens a lot, even to this day. The NTOA has been trying for years to standardize training expectations and equipment and selection criteria for SWAT teams nationally. Every few years, they come out with a document called the TRUST, Tactical Response Operations Standards. And when they publish it, it is met with some agencies say, yep, this is a great idea. This is a great guideline for us to follow. Others, especially smaller teams, dig in their heels and go, they're not going to tell us how we're going to run a SWAT team. We can't meet these standards. Therefore, we're going to set our own standards, and those standards are usually much less. ASA has done the same thing, trying to create a national standard for a basic sniper needs to receive this type of instruction. This is the type of training. He needs to be capable of doing these types of skills. And it takes this many hours and invested in an annual training schedule to accomplish that. And again, you get the resistance from teams that say, well, we don't want to be held to a standard, so we'll do our own thing. Well, the problem that it creates is you end up with snipers who, in some parts of the country, are really good, really knowledgeable, really skilled. And you end up with a lot of other guys who are uniformed trigger pullers. All they know how to do is lay down on their bellies and point a rifle at a stationary target and slow fire 5-round groups. And that constitutes for them, I'm qualified to be a sniper. And like John pointed out, we do advanced classes in different parts of the country, and it almost without fail, unless it's an area where snipercraft has been in the past, we want to dive right in and start. Okay, we're picking up where basic left off and start teaching new skills that we didn't have time to cover in basic. We spend the first day doing review and finding out that most of the things that should be basic knowledge for an operational sniper, some of these guys have never even heard of. So we end up spending a lot of time in a supposed advanced skills class doing remedial work, which means that all these snipers up to this point in time have been operating without even basic levels of knowledge, skill, and training.
Well, that must be a huge liability. Has anybody, and I haven't seen this in the news, but has anybody had any cases where, maybe this is coming up now in lawsuits, or, they're not, or they're doing something they're not supposed to do?
It is showing up in lawsuits where almost any time a police sniper team gets sued or department gets sued as a result of what their sniper team has done, the first place they attack is their level of training and documentation.
Okay.
So it's something that agencies need to start addressing, because if you're not properly training your people, you're exposing your agency to potential liability, because it's an expectation of the courts and of the public that this person wearing the SWAT uniform doing SWAT duties has been properly trained in his craft. And if they're not, you're just basically saying, how many zeros do you want on the check?
Mm-hmm.
So now, liability-wise, this would probably be a good time to basically, for those that are just tuning in, what's the benefits of joining the American Sniper Association? And, basically it's like, how much of a hassle is it?
As far as being a hassle, it is none. If you just simply go to the ASA website, you can download the registration form. It's $20 a year initially. You can renew online from that point on. The benefits of joining the association: one, it plugs you into the sniper community as a whole, because there are snipers doing the same job, facing the same issues that you are all over the country. And it's nice to have that support and have that knowledge. It also gets you access to different areas of the website that has additional information in it. Without going down the entire list of benefits, another benefit is if you and your agency is involved in sniper shooting. Most police agencies don't have a whole lot of experience handling the aftermath of a sniper shooting, so they investigated the way they would handle any other OIS. There are stark differences between a sniper shooting and a patrolman being involved in a roadside shooting. And having experts, us, to help you and your agency go through that process is a big plus. We can tell you what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, when it needs to be done, as far as the investigation, the handling of evidence, how the officers are treated, how they testify in court. All that is done based on our experiences, having done this all before so many different times. We also have an arrangement with an organization called PLEA. They offer a legal defense insurance plan for ASA members. So again, that's another plus of joining the association, and the information for that is on the ASA website. We have a newsletter that we publish quarterly, and that newsletter is full of information, training information, incident reviews, product reviews, training ideas, and it's a resource for learning more about what's going on in the sniper world.
I gotta say, like, I think the part where you're talking about like having that assistance if you go through an officer involved shooting and kind of the follow up with it, it's nice to have people in your corner that can help you with some of the process, especially nowadays when you got media and politicians and everybody else comes out possibly against you. If you're like a smaller agency, that's a pretty lonely place to find yourself in.
Absolutely. And going back to our talk earlier about the movies and television portraying snipers, most of the people who are going to be investigating you, that's their image of how snipers work. And part of our role is to dispel that image and make them understand this is the way real snipers work in the real world, not what you see on television.
One of the things just I wanted to ask before we get to the end of the time was I saw a couple months ago, there's still a posting or about on social media about tactical vision.
Mm-hmm.
So are you still running this and this is still going? If you could tell us a little bit about how it's been.
It is still a very popular class. I do a lot of tactical vision classes now for different tactical conferences. It's a program to teach police officers partly about their visual systems, how they work, what they can do, what they can't do, and how that visual system and the underlying principle of what's called perceptual blindness plays into their job as police officers, as SWAT operators, and as snipers. Helping them understand that they see far less than they actually think they see. And as we emphasize in the class, much of what they think they see, they actually think they see it. It's not real. And when we show them the examples and the scientific studies, it's frightening to someone at the beginning. But they don't realize that these things are happening behind the scenes all the time. And suddenly they have that eureka moment and go, oh, so that's why that happened to me. And then you have to spend teaching them this is the way to properly use your eyes, properly use your brains, and to be able to see more faster as a result of it, which will make you a better police officer, a better SWAT cop, and definitely a better sniper.
One of the things I had recently was I had to testify to body cam video, and it was from a traffic stop we had done, and I couldn't see into this van we stopped. Like, it was like kind of frosted windows because it was cold out, but also they had tint. But where the camera was mounted, it's kind of like low center middle of the chest area or upper abdomen. This camera could see right through the tint on the vehicle. And I had to stand near the front of the vehicle just to look through the windshield to see the vehicle operator. And it's just, that ever since then, I kind of think of just like what, perception wise, what am I actually able to see now with this camera? Though I always am like second guessing myself, but it's pretty interesting to just see what you do and do not see on scenes, because the camera was showing right through the side window when I was initially there. And the way this guy that was operating the vehicle, the way he's moving, I mean, I wasn't seeing it partially because it was obstructed, but I'm also looking in the back of the vehicle. I'm looking up to the front, all these things going on, but you miss so much in between, right? So it's like now we have the second set of eyes, but it just kind of speaks to, there's a lot happening and you don't see it all depending on what you're focused on.
Yeah, and that brings up an interesting point. One of the things we talk about in the class is body-worn cameras. And since they're so prevalent in police work these days, everybody in court and in the investigations are going to put a lot of credence in what they see on the body-worn camera. But we tell people that the cameras come with two serious limitations. One being the camera doesn't move the way your eyes and head move. It's just going to record where it is mounted on your body, your head, your shoulder, wherever. It's going to record what's in front of the lens at that perspective. So it's not going to be looking the same way your eyes are. It has a physical limitation of not being able to see through. You can't see through tint. The camera lens can sometimes. The other limitation that people have to take into account is the camera is an objective recorder of what's in front of the lens. It does not process the visual information. The camera doesn't see the way a human sees. And what you perceive about a situation is going to be completely different in some cases than what's recorded on the camera. And again, investigators and judges and juries are going to be making judgments about your actions based on what they see on the video. They can't see what's inside your head. And that's where cops need to learn how this process works and be able to testify in their own defense in some cases as this is what I perceive from my perspective, and this is why I perceived it that way.
Yeah. It's just kind of bringing us to the end of the time here. But John, did you have anything else? I think we...
Yeah, so before we take the final bow in sniper news, Derrick was recently recognized for his achievements in sniper training with the last Hathcock Award. And I would like him to speak to that for a bit.
I don't know how to speak to that. My good friend Brian Sane has been promoting and recommending me for this Hathcock Award forever, apparently. And he'd always been gotten shot down because most of the committee that votes on the Hathcock Award has military ties and military backgrounds. And Brian was promoting me as a law enforcement representative. And he continued to document things year after year and resubmit it. And finally this year, I guess they ran out of other applicants and decided to give it to me. But it was great to finally have the police sniper community recognized as contributors to the sniper zeitgeist overall. We do make a difference. We have made major contributions as far as training and equipment ideas and tactics. And although the award was given to me, it's the end result of a lot of work from a lot of different people. And in my acceptance speech, I basically said, I felt uncomfortable accepting the award because I didn't do all this. This was Snipercraft as a whole. And Snipercraft was people like John and people like Brian and people like Olin Sexton and all the other guys that I've met and carried along with me over the years. And we have done our best to make the position of police sniper something that is respected and something that is utilized properly and something that is appreciated. And so the award goes for all of them, not just me.
So, on another note, without revealing anything that would be sensitive, what projects are the ASA working on now? Or because it's like in the past, for people that don't know, you've done a series of DVDs addressing things like shooting through glass and the sniper myth of shooting guns out of people's hands. Written policy letters. I mean, the most recent one being the one on training issues for thermal sniper scopes. And so if you've got anything that you guys are working to update, and then your ongoing, the ASA's ongoing project with always collecting and analyzing data for the sniper survey, So what else have you done lately?
Well, we are in post-production of doing an updated glass shooting video. One of the presenters at SniperWeek talked about what we have accomplished, what we've done, and some of the findings of their study. And we're in the process of now taking all the footage that they've compiled over the last year and we're working with a production company to edit it all and make it into something palatable. So the hope is that by the end of this year, that video will finally become available. And since this is 2026, 2027 is the scheduled release date of the latest update of the Police Sniper Utilization Survey Report. And for those who don't know about it, in 2005, we did the work to establish a database of police sniper shootings in the United States. Because prior to that, it had never existed. It only existed in legend. So every 2 years, we publish an update to the database. And we have spent all those years between 2003 was when we started the survey, but the first report was published in 2005. Every year since 2003, we have been accumulating more and more data about police sniper shootings that have occurred around the country. And we currently have over 600 shootings in the database. So 2027 at SniperWeek will be the release date for the newest edition of that study. I personally like to brag on the fact that we are the only organization that maintains an actual living database of police sniper shooting information. The Department of Justice doesn't have it. The FBI doesn't have it. Interpol doesn't have it. No one in the world has a database like ours. Nobody's even recording data on SWAT teams or SWAT shootings or negotiators. None of that.
Wow.
Our database is unique, and every report is unique. Before anybody asks, unless you're law enforcement military, you can't get a copy of it.
Yeah, that's surprising considering all the stats that are kept. In Canada, we don't keep too many stats. We usually have to go to the FBI or one of the bigger agencies. So that's surprising that they don't even have that down there. But glad you're doing it. And as I was saying at the beginning, it's you don't have enough jobs, right? You guys, everyone we have on here has got 10 things on the go.
Yeah, it's actually tied into the history of the ASA, because when the ASA first stood up, they were going, okay, hey, what do we do to put ourselves on the map? And it was like, there's this national average figure that every sniper instructor writes about. We ought to see about updating that. And then when inquiries were made, literally everybody in American law enforcement that you would think was keeping those numbers. And it was so long story short, everybody knew that it was everybody knew the average sniper distance was this specific number. But when you pressed them about it, nobody, and I mean nobody, could tell you where that number came from. They would just go, well, the FBI, the Department of Justice. And turns out when the ASA contacted all of those agencies, they were like, yeah, we don't keep those numbers. And then that led to the creation of the database. What year was that?
We started the actual process in 2003.
Yeah.
And published the first in 2005.
Well, that's pretty good. I mean, you're gonna have a lot of data in there. At least, and could it be shared with Canadian agencies too, if anyone's interested up here?
No, we've sent copies of it to Canadians. We've sent it to Europe. We've sent it. We had the federal police in South Korea ask for copies of it, so we sent it to them.
Oh, wow. I think that's a good place to wrap it up here. I know we got to get you out, John, by the top of the hour. So, Derrick, I really do appreciate the work that you're doing. And it's always great having you on here because we learn a lot. And thanks to John as well. And the things that you guys are both doing, helping out law enforcement, military. You guys are doing some unique work in this space.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening in and following along with the discussions. Be sure to click the follow or subscribe button on your respective listening platform. Also, check out the Quiet Professional on X and Instagram under TQP780. And most importantly, please share where you can. Everyone has a part to play in getting these education and information pieces out there, so pass it along. Thanks again.